Roxanne's on the way.
So where do you want me to sit?
Just here.
Yeah.
Hi, Jacque. Could you sit at the head of the table?
Yeah, that's fine. I've even prepared some paper for you if you want to draw some diagrams and stuff.
So you want to start the questions before they come?
Should we?
It's up to you.
Just informal meeting. We're just going to sit around and I'm going to film it. So.
I'd like to be able to answer whatever questions you guys can raise for posterity.
Yes.
We just got a nasty letter from Zeitgeist people saying, why are you charging for books? Why don't you give them away?
Right.
Of course, there's 40,000 haven't printed. If they keep putting the load on us, we can't carry it. We live in a monetary system. They don't say, take all the land you want, Jacque. We put up 10 buildings, we paid for it.
Exactly.
And I don't know what they expect, but a lot of these, I don't know if you know this, but one of the girls put up $5,000 for the taxi.
Yeah, Heather.
Yeah, Heather.
Yeah.
And they wrote it and it said something about, be transparent, let me see where the money is going. She put up the money, they didn't. What the hell have they got to demand on Heather?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's amazing that they don't seem to understand that.
If you could give away your books for free, you would, but you can't. You're in a monetary system. Yeah, exactly.
When we make these videos, it takes me 2.5 years to make the models for that opening film.
Right.
And in the meantime, they want me to just give it to everybody. I'm not Bill Gates. If I were, I would. I don't know, maybe you have to write them and tell them those things.
It's a shame.
And apparently, are either very young kids that don't understand.
Because we have to do that with our events as well. We can't just pay for an event and just give it away, free tickets. Because we have to fund that event.
That's right.
And people say, why don't you just have it for free?
Because they don't give us the auditorium
Exactly,
for free.
exactly.
If you can get them to do that, we will.
Yeah.
And even if we
Or
did
if
it
you
someplace
pay
for
for it,
free, you still have
pay for the printing of the books, we'll give them
things
away.
like that if you want to record things.
But don't put it on Roxanne and Jacque. We've been doing a lot for years. Oh, this is good. I see you got some paper for me.
Yes.
I don't know if you can photograph the drawings if I need
yeah.
to do any.
I'll come
It should be
over.
alright, yes.
So could you just talk a little bit about, maybe get started on what you were explaining to me yesterday about automation, and I was talking to you about this.
I have to sit much closer to hear that.
Do you want me to move over here?
What is that?
I was talking to you about this book, and you said it doesn't really go the whole way.
It works. No, it doesn't include the money system, banks and all that.
Yeah.
It just talks about some aspects of the system.
Yeah.
And it's not, it doesn't show how to educate people so they can work together. See, a lot of books, even the books on my list, like semantics, doesn't touch the system.
Right.
And I understand some communist picked up a book on general semantics, and he wrote that capitalist A is not capitalist B. But they're so similar it doesn't matter.
Right.
You know, but semantics deals with communication, language, which is good, but it doesn't touch the system.
Right.
And if you don't touch the system, you're really not dealing with social change. At least that's the way I see it. But if you have any counter-arguments, bring them up. I would like people to say, instead of, suppose I don't want to live in a round city, but what's the matter with it? Well, transportation or something. But if they don't say anything, I don't know what to do. As they say, well, our houses, suppose I don't want to live next door to niggers. Suppose they're brought up in the South. Well, I'm going to say, well, they don't want to live next door to you either. If you're a bigot, but they don't think about those things.
Right.
They say, aren't there going to be spics living next door to me? There are a lot of mixed up people in the world, and it's very hard to get to all of them.
How can we kind of get that out of the system where people are so dependent on other people's opinions so that they can form their own opinions? How do we break that?
Fortunately, we don't have to convince everybody.
Yeah.
See, it's just, I probably can say no more than 100 people made this world. I mean, the electric lights, the power generators, I don't think it's more than, and we all live on their backs. You know what I mean? And I always ask people, they come to help the Venus Project. And I tell them, can you increase food growth? No. Can you do this? No. I said, how can you help? Go back to school and study some useful profession. And, but they want help, you know. Then write to people, talk to people, do whatever you can. That's all I can say. But if there are questions, they should ask all questions. Now, there are articles coming out, Fresco gets his money from the Vatican. That's not true at all. I get nothing from the Vatican. Or he gets it from the Rothschild banking in England. A lie, completely unreal. I think I know why people do that, just to divert attention. But they don't know what they're writing about. Or he's got 2 Mercedes. He doesn't have any cars at all. Oh, they may have seen a helicopter on our land. Somebody flew in next door. But they think Fresco has helicopters and all kinds of things. And somebody has to tell them that. That cooperation means joint venture. Don't put the load on us. If you can't make a donation, talk to people about it. I always tell people to not attack religion, because there's so many religious people in the world, we can't afford to have them attack us. Just say that I think the Venus Project carries out the Christ teachings, Mohammedan's teachings. It's world without exploitation or abuse. And I think that religious people, if they knew that, would not be against it. So if you go to church, talk about the Venus Project. Say, yes, we always gave lip service, but the Venus Project is proposing a world without money. What's the matter with money? I always tell people, Jesus said, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. There's no money in heaven as far as I know. I don't think there's private property, and I don't think there's social stratification, except for God and his angels. But I don't see that, and they say, well, my kingdom is up there. They don't understand the Lord's Prayer in that. And also, do unto others, you have others do unto you. That means don't kill people, to me. So I would say, when Larry King said, what do you think of religion? I said, it's good. When are they putting it into practice? I've never met a Christian. I mean, a person that behaves that way. Have you? Maybe there are some, like Doctors Without Borders. You know who they are? Yeah. They go to other lands and feed people and treat them medically on their own without any money. But they have to work in the States to save up to go there, to be able to do that for 2 years or a year. Yeah. And they should be sponsored by the federal government or the public. They're not. To me, they're really religious people. I respect them. If they go to church, work, and then go and help people in an earthquake and all that, that's great. I can't go to the World Lecture Tour and unless I buy airline tickets.
Yes.
And the government doesn't give me airline tickets. They go and tell people what you're doing. Then when we get to a certain place, they tell us that the venue for the lecture hall is $3,000 for 3 hours. Jesus Christ. Public doesn't volunteer anything, and they don't come anywhere near what we need to do the job. You'll have to talk to them. It's bad for me to defend myself, you know.
Yes.
It's tough. And then when they see that shit about the Vatican sponsoring us, the Vatican doesn't even know us. But they're going to spread whatever they can out there. Does that stuff work? You can't tell?
Can't tell yet. It's a little, I don't know yet. What's happening now is Andrew was telling me that the book the best that money can't buy is going out on the internet, and a lot of the Zeitgeist members are putting it up and saying that everything that we have should be free because it's to help mankind, and all Jacque's models should be free and out there, open source. But they never put any money up to get it published. You know what I mean? They haven't contributed. It's not cooperative. We carry the whole thing. We had to work on the outside in order to pay for that. We had to work on the outside in order to pay for everything there. And so Jacque could make the models. You know, they never cooperated.
That might make sense if somehow the movement could supplement your income you get from that, so then you could do that. But that's not going to happen, is it? No, they don't. They don't donate. Very few donations.
Whatever the name of this building is, they didn't say come here and stay here for a week. You know.
As soon as money gets involved and stuff, it makes everything weird. And you know, it's.
Yeah, but they don't understand that we're paying for it in order to put it out there.
Yes, and to the logistics of travelling around the world, you know, it costs a lot of money. I mean, how much have you spent on plane tickets?
Over 50,000 just on plane tickets for the whole thing. Then hotels, about 150 a night, 100 a night. You can get it that little.
Wow.
Because Jacque needs air conditioning, you know what I mean, for his sinus problem. So it's. You know, I hate harping on that a lot. We've been harping on that a lot since we got here.
Maybe you shouldn't say anything about it and let other people, but don't defend yourself on it, because as soon as then you have to keep reiterating and keep going. Just ignore it altogether. I think that's off.
We've been doing that anyway.
And then you guys can put up some posts and say stuff, but don't even respond to it.
Because you constantly get new people coming in that say these things, the same other things, and you just have to explain to them.
It's just like people. So always killed me when he said, well, we want you to be transparent about everything, and they've never put up a dime.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Where does your money go to? I think I must have made at least, over the 30 years, I probably made $1 million and put it all in here. They haven't done anything.
Right.
That's what our money goes to. That's what it's for. There's nothing else that it goes to. We're not interested in anything else. You know?
Shouldn't even begin to try and justify it. It's just waste. Yeah, no. These people just have too much time on their hands, and you know, there's more important things to worry about. You know, it's like, you know, can we see if all your earnings of the last, you know, their earnings? Can we see yours? Where's your transparency?
If I give you $1, where does it go? What transparency?
It's just splitting hairs. Yeah.
I'm going to wipe my ass with yourself.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Seems good so far.
Do you know what you should do? You know,
You have to look for it until.
do you know what you should do? When somebody says something outrageous about you, you should say something even more outrageous. Like they say you sponsored, you know, the Vatican sponsors you. You say yes, and also the Rothschilds and all the other one. We're getting the income is flying. Tell you where.
I wish we had them sponsoring us.
Bill Gates wants to borrow money from us.
Always make it even more outrageous, because then it just debunks what they're saying. Like, oh yeah, okay.
When you ask questions, speak up, because they don't work that good. Are you waiting for others?
Yeah, but they're. I said 11:30 because we were going to meet downstairs, so I don't think they're going to be here before then. You know, so.
You had that question about automation?
We're talking about what I'm interested in Jacque, is
Tell it to Roxanne. She'll tell you.
Can you hear him now or no?
Can I talk? Well, I'll say it very loud. The automation, acceleration, more no jobs for people.
Yes.
We were talking yesterday about how when you talk to people about, you know, there are going to be less jobs, then they start listening, because everybody. So the end of monotonous work, and how that's going to render more and more people out of work. So automation and stuff like that.
Did you hear that?
No, I couldn't.
Oh, remember what you were talking about yesterday with, he has trouble with accents too. I mean,
I see. Sorry.
Yeah, so it makes it harder. You were talking to Jason a lot about no work in the future. The professions would be automated. Is that the issue mainly?
That's it. Yeah.
But we would like to get it on camera. He'd like to get it on camera. What you said is excellent. Because people don't understand how things would be automated and they will be out of a job.
Oh, they're not out of a job. We list everything that needs to be done. Like, we don't know really about high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer. There's no real cure. They can use radiation and give you another 5 years of life, pain, and all that. And all the labs are always asking for money for studying retinal degeneration, and labs don't do what they want to do, they do what they can with the funds they get. Do you understand? So we're saying every lab, if we control the Earth's resources, would be provided with whatever they need. Now I'm sure during the transition, the guy says, can we have a microscope? Do you need 2? Or do you need 3? They're always conservative. So we have enough optical materials to make billions of lenses or electron microscopes. They don't take a lot of money. Like somebody told me these hearing aids sell for $5,000.
6.
But they cost about $3 to make in materials. So people get money on patents and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
I don't think it's fair for people, but what I think doesn't matter. But if we control the Earth's resources, we can make anything. The only interference is money. Since people own the mines, they own the diamond mines, they own the glass factories, so they charge. Everybody charges everybody. If you get a flat, somebody charges you to fix that. But if you own the resources of the world, you don't need to worry about enough glass. We got enough sand to make the whole surface of the earth glass if we wanted to. But if you own the sand companies, he owns the melting companies, he owns the shaping factories, well, you got all of those costs. Even if you mine coal, you have to deliver the coal 3,000 miles away. That's part of the energy. And the paying people to dig the coal out of the ground, buying trucks, all of that has to be factored in. How much heat do you get from coal? You can't measure the coal alone and the heat you get from it. What about the energy to mine it, deliver it, and the freight trains you have to build to carry it? All of that has to be factored in. So all I'm saying is if we go to a resource-based economy, the public owns all of that. And so we just use it as we need it. Now, the person says, does the public participate? Only if they can. I said, can you make mining equipment so that men don't have to go down into the ground? No. Well, who's going to do the dirty work? Well, I think the only way to get people to do the dirty work during the transition is to say you work 3 hours a day, only 3 days a week. You get a month vacation. By varying those things, you get people to do the dirty work during the transition. Once we get going, we don't need people to do that because we put mining engineers on machines to do the mining. And so you don't have to worry about cave-ins and gas leaks and explosions. I don't want people down under the ground anyway. You know what I mean? But transitionally, somebody has to do the dirty work. So you vary the incentives. If you work at a coal mine, maybe 2 hours a day. You know what I mean? But lots of structural reinforcement also. But a mining company doesn't want to put in oxygen tanks and emergency vehicles that get out, that can stand cave-in pressures. You know, where's the profit in coal if you do that? If you give all the people in your factory health care and service their automobiles and take care of a place for their children, he says, where the hell's the profit? Who's going to invest in my company? You know, the profit margin has to go up for people who invest. And people don't invest because they're Christians. They invest for profit, returns on investment. Otherwise they wouldn't invest. If I'm wrong, let me know where I'm wrong. I don't see people working for the goodness of their heart, except Doctors Without Borders. You know what that is? There are people that do that. I respect them. I deeply admire them. But they're you can only count them. There are not millions that do that.
Well, there are millions that volunteer for different things.
Oh, different things,
they really
yes.
are.
Yes. And they say, what incentive will people have if you take away the money system? Well, why did Martin Luther King march into the South? He believed in what he was doing. Nobody put $40,000 in his bank account. And the same with Gandhi. He worked for nothing. So did Jesus. So did Lindbergh's father. He said there should be a national bank owned by the people, meaning if you had a community of 10,000 people and they all chipped in $25 and built a community bank, and the bank lend money to everybody at interest, the same as other banks, but the profit would go to the whole community. That's much better than a private bank. The biggest buildings in town are owned by the banks. That means you pay for those buildings by putting your money in those banks. Do you understand what I mean? So if everybody in the community, say 10,000 people, chipped in $10 apiece, they can have community farms, community restaurants, and all the profits goes to everybody in the community. I like that better than what we've got.
Could you talk a little bit about those little hubs of people working, like, what would you call, like, things like Transition Town? And I mean, do you see this as a slow progression towards...
It'll be as fast as people make contact and tell other people about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, if you got 2 million people talking about the Venus Project, to others, it's spread fast. If they do nothing, it'll take longer and more human suffering. I have no control of that. Depends on what people do. And if they got a better idea for the city, let's hear about it.
Jacque, I don't know if you heard that, or Jason was asking about, do you think that there are stepping stones to the Venus Project, like, you'd have to describe what transition towns is about, like transition towns or people in different towns making gardens, or...
If you do that, you're going to have people wanting to get into those first towns. And what are you going to do? You can get in, you can get in. Only if they're technical can increase agricultural yield. If we have a problem in agriculture, if the volunteers want to do the physical work, that's all right, but the agronomists will tell them what has to be done. They're not dictators. And if you want to have more soil, you have to shave off the topsoil, not build cities right over black topsoil. I told you, it takes 1,000 years to make 1 inch of topsoil for nature. So we better shave it off and put it in banks, soil banks, where you store it. Another thing I want to tell you, if we got in a nuclear war and people came from another planet to try to find out what we were like, there's no place they can go. The only banks with thick vaults have money in them. They don't have the history of medicine, the history of engineering, the early history of writing and communication. There's no source for knowing what we were like. And banks are the only people that have certificates of debt behind vaults. And all they'll find out is nothing. And you have to tell that to people. You have to tell them the greatest things we have is people that can restore the soil or build air. I don't know if you know about it. Did I talk about a guy named Cottrell? 75 years ago he made electrostatic air filters.
No.
It's laminated sheets of metal. They're separated by just a few inches. And the smoke coming out of factories become electrically charged to the first place. The second place has the same charge as the dust particles or smoke, and they adhere to that. So no smoke comes out of industrial smokestack, just warm air, which we use for drying machines. But they don't even know about Cottrell. So I've never seen a factory with just warm air coming out. You see this dirty smoke coming out, they don't have to put that in. And industry says to government, get off our backs, we'll take care of the problems. The government, meaning people say, we want your smokestacks to have Cottrell precipitators. It doesn't cost that much. It costs about $300 for each smokestack. Oh, well, if the public pays for it, I don't think that's fair. I think the factories ought to pay for it. They're the ones producing the smoke. So if people don't know about these different processes, they can't advocate anything except that our cities are getting dirty. We run our hands over our furniture and it's black. So what we recommended about 40 years ago is that we increase the air pressure in buildings. If it's 16 pounds to the square foot at sea level, we make it about 18 pounds, so no dust gets in your house. You run your hand over, there's no black soot. Just a slight increase in air pressure. But all of those things are not known. So I say, what's the matter with the world today? Nothing's the matter. I like things the way they are. It means you either don't know that your lungs are slowly being damaged, that maybe in 10 or 20 years you're going to get lung cancer. Not just by smoking, just by being in the vicinity where people smoke. Now, do you want to stop smoking? You can make rooms for people that want to smoke. I don't believe in stopping people from doing anything, but that they should know the consequences. Give them a chance, but don't say no to tobacco or say no to drugs. Reagan's wife said that, say no to drugs. Well, nobody's going to say no to drugs. If you can make $1,000 a week selling drugs, he might have a slight conscience. But somebody says, look, nobody gives a shit about you. Why should you care about them? He says, it's true. So he goes out and he sells drugs. Very few people have a conscience.
When we were standing at Andrew's building, we were standing looking over London, and you said, look at this place, none of this had ever been, things just popped up, nobody sat down and actually organized it. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, about the cities and how the cities we live in now are just urban sprawl? There's been no planning involved, and how the Venus Project wants to readdress that, and
Okay.
and then if you could move on into automation too, that's just
Instead of urban sprawl,
yeah.
what we want to do is ask, what is a city? What does a city mean to people? What kind of world do you want to live in? They don't know. They usually don't.
Yeah.
So they do the same thing you've been doing. A bunch of houses in a row, air conditioning out of each window, rather than cool air pumped to all the houses. You just take in so much cool air, and the energy you consume has to do with your needs. If he says the air is too cold, he says, no, it's too warm. He says, it's just right. So what we have to do is zone cooling. You know what I mean? It's cool in your area, warm in your area. So zone cooling is just a central unit with vents on it that can direct cool air to your area, warm air to yours, and it's all one system. I never showed you this, but I don't show it to everybody because they make money with it. They take out patents on it. This is the floor plan of a building. All right, this is the living room, all of this area. This is the bathroom. This is the hallway. Now, one hallway serves 1, 2, 3, 4 outlets. But most of your building has a lot of hallway in it. You can't do anything with that. So the wall divider in this room has a closet on this side and the closet opens on that side. So you don't have to make the walls too thick. The air conditioning is up above this area and vents into all the rooms. Do you understand that? Now if you had a hurricane and it blew against this wall, this unusual triangle delivers the load to the 4 walls. Do you understand that? If you make a hallway shaped like this, and you have walls here, that delivers, if this is a building, if a hurricane hits this wall, this structure presses against that and that, so all the walls take up the load.
Right.
Minimum hallways. You say, I like hallways. Well, if you make a lot of hallways in a house, you're losing living area. Now, if you put rooms that are super extravagant in each house, then you're depriving other people of material resources. So what we try to do is design the most efficient hallway so loads are distributed in a hurricane to minimize danger in living systems. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you say, the hell with other people, I like a big house, then you don't understand what the Venus Project is trying to do. I want to go back to another system. This is ancient Rome. Then they put a column up here. I must have explained this to some people. This is what the buildings look like in ancient Rome. Something like that, real fast. See it? Can you see it? And then they carved all kinds of curlicues in here and statues of men on horses, whatever they needed. They needed all these columns because they could not support the roof in the old days. But today you have cantilever beams where you don't need all these columns. But in Washington they were impressed by ancient Rome and they put all these kinds of things in libraries. That is no longer necessary. Conservation of materials are strong enough to span a great distance with only 2 columns. But people say, yeah, but I like that. Well, you're wasting resources. Either you house the world, build hospitals all over the world, but if you use these columns, you're wasting existing resources. Is that real clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm against this, except in Rome.
Yes.
If we go to Rome, I want to preserve these areas so people can see what things used to be like. I'm not against destruction of the pyramids. I'd like to build a glass building over it so that they don't rot anyway and show people what it used to be like. But I'm not against building a pyramid building. I don't know what that would serve. Or if a guy dies, you build a gigantic pyramid that cost years to make. And there's one guy buried in it, and his slaves, which are killed, so he'll have slaves when he gets to heaven. I don't know if you know that. But there's so much stupidity in the world. God says, I like a pyramid. I love these columns. That means he doesn't give a shit about other people. I do.
Because we're moving from vanity to utility.
Yes.
That's basically
That's a hard thing to get across. He says, do you understand this? Now, sometimes the government will build a monument to veterans. There's a big thing you walk through. They have parades through it, and the veteran statues all over the place and names, and it might cost $4 to $5 million. I say, take that money and put it in the veterans' hospitals for MRI machines, X-ray machines, crutches, wheelchairs. We don't want any monuments to veterans. We want